like to thank our sponsors for this week's drasha, Simi and Sammy Franco, in honor of Rabbi and Mrs. Binyamin and Esty Silver, with much gratitude for all they have done for our Kehila and community. And certainly like to join with the Francos and so many others in wishing the Silvers much, much hatzlacha moving on. You'll certainly be missed here. And also sponsored by Bobby and Jules Meisler to commemorate the yahrzeit of Bobby's father, Julius Altman, Yehuda ben Mordechai, on the 18th of Elul, the Shamash and Aliyah. Thank you very much. There's a very perplexing pasuk in this week's parsha. We read in this week's parsha the Tochacha, where God, Moshe, conveys to the Jewish people the tremendous punishments that will befall them if they, as a nation, do not serve God appropriately. And many, many psukim into the Tochacha, into this rebuke, there's a very striking pasuk. Tachas, let's translate it as because of the fact, as a result of, asher lo avadatas Hashem Elokecha b'simcha v'tuv levav. Because of the fact that you didn't serve Hashem your God with joy and a good heart, merov kol, for all of the abundance that He gave you. The straightforward understanding of this verse is, if we don't serve God with joy, all these terrible things will befall us. Hard to understand. Is it such a central tenet of we know there's a famous pasuk, give to us Hashem b'simcha, serve God with joy. We certainly try to serve God with joy, but these terrible calamities befalling a nation because they didn't serve God with joy, it's a very, very difficult pasuk to understand. What does this mean? There are numerous approaches. I'd like to share with you a very interesting perspective from the Meshech Chachma. The Meshech Chachma says we're misreading the pasuk. He suggests the meaning of the pasuk is as follows: Tachas asher lo avadatas Hashem Elokecha b'simcha v'tuv levav. Do you know why all these things are happening to you? Because you do have simcha. You do have joy. You do have a nice feeling of the heart. And for all of the joy that you have, you're still not serving God correctly. So it's not that the problem is that you're not happy and that's why all these problems are coming. No, you're plenty happy. You're living it up. You're having a great time. You're appreciating so much, but it's not translating to appropriate service of God. And then the Meshech Chachma says the reason why that's the case is because the core of your simcha, the core of your joy is merov kol, from all of the abundance. What makes a person happy? What makes a person tick? What energizes us? Different people are energized by different things. The Meshech Chachma says that in this context, we're addressing the Jewish people getting excited and energized by abundance of assets, which is great. Abundance of assets is the blessings of God. Our job, when we're blessed, is to do the most we can with that which God bestows upon us. But that's not supposed to be the ultimate core of simcha. That's not supposed to be having a lot of money in the checking account. Is not supposed to be the thing that makes us happy. In fact, the Meshech Chachma says, if you look near the beginning of this week's parsha, there the Torah does tell us what's supposed to make us happy. Very last pasuk of the first Aliyah. V'samach tov v'chol hatov. You should rejoice in all of the goodness. Asher nosan lecha Hashem Elokecha l'veisecha. That Hashem, your God, has given to you and to your household. Tov ha'levi v'ager asher b'kirbecha. You, the Levi, the convert in your midst. So just think about this pasuk. The main point the Meshech Chachma makes from this pasuk is it doesn't say how much God gives you here. The pasuk that the Meshech Chachma says is the inappropriate approach to joy is saying that we have that joy because of rov kol, because we have an abundance of so much. Here it just says, be happy with what God gives you. That's what should make us happy. Whatever God gives us, The Meshech Chachma quotes the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ezu Ashir Sameach B'chelko, who is the truly wealthy person, the person who's happy with their lot in life. That's what the Pasuk is saying as well. Rejoice in all the good that God gives you, whatever it is that you have. Look at it and say, it's here for a reason. You have a beautiful house, you have not as beautiful house, you have a wonderful car, you have not as beautiful car. Whatever it is in life, and it doesn't only have to be financial assets, it can be all kinds of things. Look at it and say, this is what God has blessed me with. Let me embrace it. Let me think of how I can serve him, and let me just be grateful that he's given me what he's given me. By the way, the next point to think about, the Meshech Chachma, I don't believe makes this comment, but it's self-evident, I think. Part of the appropriate approach to joy is when we see the good that God gives us, we share it with others. That's the second part of that verse. You, the Levi, the convert in your midst, people who might not have the inherited land that you have. So that's the point the Meshech Chachma makes. It's a very interesting shot in the Pasuk. It's a very different perspective on that first verse that we cited. But I want to reflect a little bit on this point because I think it's an extremely important point. What the Meshech Chachma is really saying is that if a person doesn't think and feel how a Jew is supposed to think and feel, it impacts our avodas Hashem. It impacts the manner in which we serve God. We might think that we could bifurcate it. We might think that we could say, listen, the mitzvos are the mitzvos. The Torah is the Torah. I'm going to do my best. I'm not perfect, surely, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do a pretty solid job on the commandments. And, whatever I feel, whatever emotions I have, whatever excites me, that's a different category. Meshech Chachma says that the Pasuk is teaching us that that's not the case. That the core of the Jewish people slipping to such a point that they face these terrible calamities of the Tochacha is that we allowed ourselves to not be excited by the right things. Probably better put, to be excited by the wrong things. And I would like to just share a thought that I've just sort of been bouncing around in my mind for a while. I hope I don't offend anyone. I certainly don't mean to offend anyone. But I think it's important to think about. We live in a wonderful, wonderful country. And there are so many wonderful things that we can benefit from in this country. And the fact that we have the freedom of religion is, as so many have said before, we should look at America as the United States of America as a malchus shel chesed, literally a monarchy of kindness. Obviously not literally a monarchy, but a government of tremendous kindness. But sometimes there are things in the broader cultural environment that we have a way of just embracing, and I'm not sure that's so correct. So I want to talk about not a specific view within politics, don't worry, but I want to speak about our approach to politics. I saw an article, I think it was in this past week's news, very, very disturbing. The idea of signs in front of people's homes being taken or vandalized in some way. Political signs, whether it be about a movement, whether it be about a specific political candidate. Just think about that. Think about what that means. You have two people, maybe they're neighbors, maybe they're not neighbors, but let's just say, for the sake of theoretically speaking, that they're neighbors for a moment. So imagine, I do know the person, I don't know the person, I sort of know the person. They seem like a fine enough person, but they have a different political view than I have. They support a movement that I don't support. They support a candidate that I don't support. And that irritates me. That angers me. It angers me so much that I take something which isn't mine and I remove it from the property of the owner of the item. Or I deface something that's not mine. That's remarkable. It's extremely concerning. And the truth is, similar things have happened here in Camp Mill, by the way. And I can only hope that it would not, none of these things were done by a member of our religious community. But I have to be honest with you, I would be very disappointed if it was the case, but I think I'd be lying if I told you I was stunned. So what is this? Am I suggesting to you that we shouldn't have political views? I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't have political views. Am I suggesting that politics isn't important? I'm not suggesting politics isn't important. What I am suggesting is that we just calm down a little bit. There's nothing wrong with me disagreeing with the person. There's nothing wrong with me debating with the person. It's fine. It's fine. It's probably good. But if I become so angered by their view that I have to deface something that's not mine, show me the pasuk in the Torah that says it's permissible to damage something of another person's because I think they're wrong. Where'd you get that one? And even if, as I hope is the case, nobody from our community could ever imagine to do such a thing, even if that's the case, it's worth thinking about how far this strong emotion can take a person. That a person can be so emotionally charged that they can take something of someone else's, damage something of someone else's. So even if we could never imagine doing that, could we imagine saying something offensive to another person at Shalom's? Could we imagine berating a person in Kiddush at Shul? Could we imagine refusing to speak to a person over political views that they shared? Because I'll tell you, people have shared with me experiences. Thank God people don't tell me names, but people have shared with me experiences of all these things in our community. It's a very striking thing to think about. And by the way, I don't mean to say, heaven forbid, that that's an American thing either, to be so strong towards people of another view. But it's certainly not a Torah principle. And let's think about this idea of the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah's idea is if my emotions are out of step with the Torah, it ultimately impacts how I live my Torah lifestyle. In contrast to passion about political views, let us ask ourselves, how passionate are we about another person's needs, about another person's emotions, about another person's feelings? I don't mean whether or not they agree with me politically, but if I'm so energized by hearing a certain political argument, am I equally, if not more, energized by hearing a beautiful thing that a person did? If I'm so distraught by hearing a political argument, am I equally distraught by hearing a difficult situation that a person is going through? Not necessarily my best friend, person that I maybe I don't know them at all, maybe I just recognize them by face. To think and feel as a Jew. To think and feel as a Jew. We're an elevated people. We're fortunate enough to have God's holy Torah. But it's not only the actions, it's the thoughts and the emotions. We're weeks away from Rosh Hashanah. Certainly we're thinking so much, am I doing this mitzvah properly? Am I doing that mitzvah properly? And we should do that. It's also worthwhile to take a little bit of a gut check. What's energizing me? What's exciting me? And I think it behooves each and every one of us, whether on this plane, whether in another area, to think about that. I want to say one more thing about being upset with another person's political views for a moment. And again, I don't want to specify any movement or argument, because that's not really my point. You know, sometimes you could have two people, and one person doesn't mean something as a political view. They just mean something as what they see as basic human compassion or kindness or ethics. And another person says, you're getting involved in that. You're getting involved with all those politics. You know something? Maybe you're right. Maybe there are a bunch of politics. But that person isn't thinking about politics. That person is thinking about emotions and needs. Why, even if you don't agree with the people with whom that individual subscribes, can't I look at the person still with respect? And the other way too, a person doesn't agree with your political views. Sorry, a person doesn't agree with your sentiments about something, and you say, "What a cold, callous person." And they say, "It's not that I'm cold and callous; it's that I have political concerns about the matter." And you say, "Political concerns? What difference does it make? I'm trying to be a thoughtful person." The more we take a step back, the more we appreciate that the most important thing about the person standing opposite me is that they're at Tselem Elokim. They're a human being in the image of God, maybe even another member of the Jewish people. The more I focus on that, the more I remind myself what is worth getting all worked up about in life and what's not worth getting all worked up about in life, the more I can take a step back and try to appreciate where the person's actually coming from. And maybe we'll actually have a normal conversation. And we don't have to agree, but we have to treat each other with derech eretz and ava. We have to treat each other with dignity and love. And those are Torah principles. Have a wonderful Shabbos. And thank you for taking the time to allow me to share my thoughts.